Welcome to another interesting edition of Marvelous Videos. Let's begin by emphasizing the word interesting, for we have a unique video for all our viewers. The character we're going to talk about in our video is a villain who's not spoken a lot about in the Marvel Universe. Not as popular as Loki, Thanos, or Dormammu, but definitely deserves a space of their own. We're talking about the Dweller in Darkness, a villain with a robot-like body and a Cthulhu face that looks eerily similar to an octopus with tentacles. He's one of the villains who makes only periodic appearances. The Dweller has fought gods, powerful sorceresses, and even Doctor Strange, and has been a very strong match for them. That's the case with many other villains. He, however, uses his powers to his advantage by playing with people's wants and emotions, which is really detestable. Apart from his origin, this video will also talk about his adventures, modus operandi, and the various roles he's played in comics and movies. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Before we start off, remember not to fear. You'll understand why. The backstory of the Dweller in Darkness. One unique feature of the Dweller in Darkness is that he has to sustain human fear to stay alive and powerful. Moreover, the Dweller can even harness that energy to strengthen his influence over the world, especially by creating demons to help him do his dirty work. The Dweller follows a belief called the Way of Shamblu, which requires follows to decapitate themselves and alter their faces, hence the frightening octopus-like face. Moreover, demons cannot exist in a physical form, but the Dweller's belief requires him to exist physically. Because of this, he is regarded as an outcast from his society and peers. He's simply not one of them, and probably, from the other demon's point of view, he's a weird person. However, this ostracizing does not stop the Dweller from creating his own gang. With his mastery over his powers and his goal of harvesting fear, he even leads a group of fear lords who participate in his schemes. The Dweller, however, is clever too. He puts the other lords in a position as bait for the superheroes he's fighting against to buy himself more time and power for tackling them single-handedly and having all the influence on Earth to himself. The Dweller also shares his powers on feeding on human fears with a fellow demon, Nightmare. Because of this, the Dweller claims that Nightmare is his cousin, but Nightmare rejects the claims since he knows that they do not have the same origins and that the Dweller follows the Way of Shamblu. First encounter on Earth. In issue number 33 of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Volume 1, the Dweller summons a meeting of the Fear Lords and tells them about his plans to create fear that could end humanity, titling the mission The Great Fear. His plan is to make sure that Doctor Strange defeats the other Fear Lords so that he can get the ultimate feast of fear. The Dweller also narrates his past, when he first came to Earth, to add context to the reason behind his mission. He was discovered by Everinnye, a sorceress of the Atlantis civilization who invoked the gods Agamotto and Valka and drove him away from the planet. Everinnye realized that the Dweller was really powerful since she and the gods could not destroy him. So she kept him trapped in another dimension, in a slumber where he was immobile and unconscious. Everinnye herself has a backstory. She was a revered sorceress in her kingdom, but one day, when she predicted that the Atlantis civilization would come to an end, the king and his queen took it as blasphemy and banished her. During her exile, she amassed a cult, including Dakim, a student, and taught them the tricks and trades of magical superpowers. Everinnye's prophecy came true. The Atlantis civilization started sinking into the ocean after being struck by a cataclysm. Seizing the right opportunity, the Dweller absorbed the inhabitants' fear and used it to create Despair, another Fear Lord who was then tasked with killing Everinnye in revenge and keeping him well fed with fear, all while still paralyzed. After the collapse, one of the cultists, under the influence of despair, killed Everinnye with a sword. However, anticipating that something like this would happen, she had already prepared her disciple, Dakim, for the fight, granting him immortality to continue with the mission and to ensure that her final prediction of demons ruling the world was thwarted. The fight between Dakim and the Dweller has been going on for centuries now, with neither side winning the battle, always a tie. After this, the Dweller created more beings like Despair to strengthen his influence. Despair, however, remains one of the Dweller's most significant creations. Later, the Dweller says that he went on to fight Thor and Hercules. In a later encounter with Doctor Strange and Clea, he harnesses some of Clea's fear and uses it to break out of his paralysis. The Shade Thralls, the Dweller's army on Earth. The Dweller adds that he had created an army of humans on Earth called the Shade Thralls, whose primary motive is executing their master's schemes on the planet and feeding him with human fear. The Dweller gets these people on board after entering their dreams and tells them that by killing themselves, they will get eternal life, which makes them kill themselves. The Dweller's Shade Thralls, however, have one weakness: sensitivity to sunlight. In fact, in the past, Thor and Hercules, while in a battle with the Dwellers, defeated the Shade Thralls by taking advantage of this very weakness. The Dweller also mentions that his Shade Thralls were recently defeated by Doctor Strange and Clea. The Dweller then makes alliances with two demons, Ludi and Ningal, and creates another demon, the Dreamweaver. Doctor Strange manages to defeat these characters, and the Dweller mentions that this will help him in his plan to defeat Doctor Strange. Despair turns against his master. In Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme Volume 1, Issues 33 to 40, 1991 to 1992, Strawman, one of the Lords, reveals the plan to Doctor Strange and is then attacked by the other Lords, who finish him before proceeding with their mission. As the Dweller is executing his plan, most of the Lords are defeated by Doctor Strange, a part of the villain's plan to make others take the bait. However, the Dweller does not see what is coming next. Despair tells Nightmare about his master's plans. Nightmare then confronts the Dweller and both get into a fight. During the battle, they generate a lot of fear, which then turns into despair within humanity as they're not bothered anymore. Despair feeds on that indifference and powers himself before getting into a fight with the Dweller and defeating him. The Fear Crown. The Dweller is temporarily enslaved. The Fear Lords convene in another meeting to discuss tackling the Serpent, another supervillain scheming to take over the Earth. Odin, one of the gods, has tackled the Serpent. The Dweller tells the group that the Serpent is no threat. He's sad that he was not able to harness the Serpent's energy. Meanwhile, Kid Loki, along with his partner, tips off the other Fear Lords of Nightmare's actions. Nightmare has gotten hold of the Serpent's fear and has made it into a powerful crown. A fight over who gets to keep the crown is triggered between the Fear Lords, and the Dweller gives Nightmare a good fight to get the crown. However, Kid Loki tips off Mephisto, a demon outside the Fear Lord group, who defeats the Dweller and takes over the crown. He then makes the Fear Lords serve him. Later, Kid Loki sacrifices himself, and the crown disappears. The Fear Lords realize that they have been trapped and drive Mephisto away. While the Dweller did fight a good fight for the crown, he wasn't able to capture it and also fell prey to Mephisto's schemes. After all, no entity is perfect, and the Dweller had to comply to ensure his sustenance of fear while serving Mephisto. The Dweller's backstory in X-Men. In Adventures of the X-Men Volume 1, Issue number 12, the backstory of the Dweller in Darkness is revealed. He aims to destroy the multiverse by feeding on fear and shatters the Macran crystal, which creates a black hole that swallows the multiverse. The Dweller, anticipating the opportunity to feast on fear and be reborn with more potent powers, is ultimately defeated by the Phoenix Force. This intervention reduces the fear among the universe's inhabitants, but the damage to the multiverse cannot be undone. Galactus, a space explorer and the last survivor of his universe, merges the universe's sentience and becomes part of a new multiverse. The fate of the Dweller in Darkness remains unclear, but it's presumed that he did not survive the collapse. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The Dweller returns in a completely different avatar. In the film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 2021, Asian superhero Shang-Chi, also known as Brother Hand, is shown to fight against the Dweller. The Dweller makes his appearance as the leader of the Soul Eaters, creatures who have the ability to feed on souls. Thousands of years ago, the Dweller, along with his army, launched an assault on the universe of Ta Lo, aiming to destroy it. Their efforts were thwarted by the Great Protector, a virtuous dragon, and the people of Ta Lo. The Dweller and his minions were then imprisoned inside a sealed door, which was guarded by the Great Protector herself. Despite the Dweller's attempts to entice the people of Ta Lo by promising them their greatest desires, these efforts to free himself from the door proved unsuccessful. Later, in 2024, the Dweller tricks Zhu Wenwu, the leader of the Ten Rings group, into releasing him by tricking and manipulating him into believing that his deceased wife, Ying Li, is trapped behind a door. Wenwu believes it and launches an attack on Ta Lo to open the door with the hope of being reunited with his wife. After being freed, the Dweller proceeds to consume the souls of Ta Lo's people. Later, he gains more energy and attacks Wenwu, sucking and harnessing his soul. The Dweller then gets into a fight with the Great Protector, but gains more power as his minions give him more souls to feast on. However, Katie Chan, another protagonist, shoots an arrow into his throat, which hurts and weakens him, making him unable to absorb the Great Protector's soul. Toward the end of the fight, Shang-Chi kills the Dweller by pushing him into the water with his rings, causing the villainous dragon to explode. Two prominent differences of the Dweller in comics and film. While the characters are the same in personality in the movie and the books, the Dweller is shown to harness human souls to sustain himself in the film, compared to human fear in the comics. Same ability, but different purposes. The Dweller also looks completely different in the film. He has a dragon-like face, which is different from the Cthulhu structure of his face in the comics. Adam Barnhart, a journalist with comicbook.com, spoke to VFX and animation studio Weta Digital's Sean Walker, who supervised the VFX on Shang-Chi. Walker said that the Dweller usually looks nightmarish and frightening, and because of this personality attribute, they could play around with the villain's looks to enhance its villainous and frightening personality. At the same time, dragons are also prominent figures in the cultural nuances of Ta Lo. Hence, he was given the shape of a dragon to make the Dweller more culturally appropriate and relatable. Powers. In the comics, human fear. The Dweller feeds on human fear to sustain himself, allowing him to generate and disperse more fear. Creation of minions. The Dweller can also create demons and minions with his harnessed fear, which is how he created despair. His created minions can also harness powers to sustain and generate fear for influencing other creatures. He also has the remarkable ability to manipulate humans, entering their dreams and manipulating their thoughts, through which he could create the Shade Thralls. The Dweller could even carry out his plan of creating despair while paralyzed. Immortality. The Dweller is practically indestructible and immortal. Even Everinnye, when invoking her gods, could only banish him from Earth but not harm or defeat him. Anatomy. The Dweller's fate gives him a unique body anatomy. In the Way of Shamblu, the Dweller had to detach his head from the body and attach it to a robotic body. He lives on through his head, which is detachable in case his body is affected. It's from this robotic body that the Dweller gets superhuman strength. The Dweller is considered one of the most outstanding demons of all time, having given a hard time to Thor, Hercules, and Doctor Strange. He also leads the group of Fear Lords, and he could also be its most powerful member. In the movie, soul absorption. In the film, the Dweller can suck the souls of people, harness the energy, and be more powerful. Superhuman strength. Like in the comics, the Dweller possessed a lot of strength in the film, which enabled him to break out of the sealed guarded gate. Longevity. Although the Dweller is shown as mortal in the film compared to the comics, he has a huge lifespan. He waited for thousands of years to be freed from the sealed door. Mind reading and mimicry. The Dweller manages to reach out to people to save him, usually using the voice of a loved one, as in Wenwu's case, which proves to be successful. Marvelous verdict. Superheroes and supervillains have many powers in common, including immortality and superhuman strength. However, apart from a few other traits, what sets them apart are their origins, the journey they undertake to gain those powers, and of course, the way they use them. The Dweller in Darkness is a perfect example of this in comics and movies. The Dweller follows a cult that brands him an outcast among his peers. However, if not for the arduous journey, which included sacrificing his body and deforming his face, he would never have been known for what he is. His new avatar helps him countless times on his quest for sustenance and power, and also helps him gain notoriety among the superheroes and the gods. Of course, a badge of honor for him. What we absolutely despise about the Dweller is the way he manipulates people into working under him and fulfilling his goals. In the comics, he makes people kill themselves for the false promise of eternal life, so that he can form an army against the gods. Moreover, in the film, he mimics Zhu Wenwu's late wife in a successful attempt to escape, using someone's weaknesses and sentiments, in this case, the love Wenwu had for his wife, resulting in him acting delusionally and freeing the villain villainous dragon may be considered a great mind game, but it's an excellent example of bad character, cowardice, and even a lack of ethics, the most prominent weakness. If you found this video interesting and know people who love understanding villains in comics and movies, please share it with them. Also, do let us know in the comments what you think about the Dweller. Thanks for watching this video, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.